You see this flowchart. This flowchart seems simple enough, right? Draw phase is for drawing, main phase is for committing war crimes, and battle phase is for, you guessed it, battling. It's very simple and self-explanatory, and oh my god, what is that thing? To be completely honest with you, I don't really understand the damage step that well. For the most part, I just let Master Duel take the wheel and let me know what I can and cannot activate. I know the most basic stuff about it, like cards that can modify attack or defense can be used in the damage step. But there's still a good amount of the time where after the dust settles of a battle phase, I don't really understand why the game state performed the way it did. How come I get a replay on my attack and sometimes I don't? Why does it feel like some cards can be used in any part of the damage step while others need to be used within specific windows? Why did the chicken cross the road? These could be tough questions to answer without taking a look under the hood to understand how this step actually works. So in an attempt to learn it for myself, I decided to stand in front of a green screen with a microphone and dissect every part of damage step to see if I can make some clarity in this chaos. And by the end of this video, we can hopefully answer all three of these questions by educating ourselves. I mean, it's not like this doesn't make any sense, right? So when actually looking into the damage step, it's broken down into 5 different sub-steps. Start of the damage step, before damage calculation, after damage calculation, and then end of damage step. And let's say Goofy me just decides to attack my opponent's face down monster because I don't have the balls to play into the Enneacraft Gambit. What exactly happens here? And the first thing that happened is technically still in battle step, which is attack declaration. And this is actually the point to where if the number of attackers and defenders change, then the attacking player is offered a replay on the attack. But if both players are good with the attack, then it moves into damage calculation. And at this point, it's considered that combat is locked in and replays will no longer occur. And the first thing to happen is that effects that apply during the damage step only begin applying immediately. The documents reference Speedroid, which I think is actually a good example because it kind of helped me understand this lawyer talk a little bit more. To stay consistent, I'm just going to throw the card that they reference in the documents here so I just don't have to repeat myself over and over again saying cards. But to explain this in a dumb person way like myself, it's basically a continuous effect that only happens during the damage step, immediately starts applying here the moment damage step begins. This happens before even flipping up your monster, which is actually not going to happen for a while. Next, it says cards and effects that activate at the start of the damage step can be activated. And this is simple enough, right? It's basically referring to cards that actually start a chain. So those would take the next priority after the continuous effects, and that makes perfect sense to me. For cards without problem-solving card text, the text without applying damage calculation indicates that effect activates either here or before damage calculation. And you want to know something that's a little messed up here, is that I'm pretty sure, despite Master Duel being an online client, they just imported the card text, so there's plenty of cards in Master Duel that are still pre-problem solving card text. It's like you have the perfect opportunity to just write it correct, but you imported the card text anyway, and we just have to deal with this even on an online client. This shouldn't be relevant to me, but it strangely is. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Cards without problem-solving card text that activate at this timing, but have no way to distinguish that they do not activate before damage calculation, are Disciple of the Forbidden Spell, Core Blaster, and Blackwing Jane the Rain Shadow. So basically, I just need to remember that these 3 cards work different than basically everything else in the game. But you know what? These 3 cards are also pre-problem solving card text, so I can forgive 3 of the thousands of cards in the game before problem solving card text slipping through. I think that's actually a pretty good number. Anyway, finally at the start of the damage step, you can use fast effects that alter the attack and defense, which is, you know, the kind of card that we've all learned about when we first started asking what kind of cards can we use in the damage step. Wait a minute, fast effects? Is that what it's actually called? Fast effects? I feel like I've been misgendering a card mechanic here. Aren't they called quick effect speed on the card? Quick effect denotes that the effect is a fast effect. Oh my god, you guys had an official term for instant speed and nobody has told me. It's been like 20 videos. This might be the lamest existential crisis of my life. So both players have agreed to move into the next sub-step. Welcome to before damage calculation. And at this point, your face down monster will flip face up, and the eager Enneacraft player will show me the red chip. But hold on there, buddy, you're gonna have to hold off on that flip effect, because that's not gonna happen until after damage calculation. I still have some time to think about what I want to do about this card that's basically trying to be better than a Maneater bug. And like the previous step as well, if the flipped up monster has a continuous effect, that continuous effect is going to start being applied immediately. However, if the flip effect monster has a continuous effect that destroys itself, such as Zombie Mammoth, the monster is not destroyed at this time. The same thing applies if the flip monster conflicts with Rivalry of the Warlords or Gozen Match. In all of these cases, the appropriate action is done after damage calculation. What? Okay, so apply all continuous effects immediately, except ones that remove monsters from play, because they get the special treatment and they work different, so you have to wait until after damage calculation to apply those effects. Good to know. I'm genuinely curious though, is there a reason why it works this way? Like, is there some sort of way that people can abuse the fact that it would get removed right here instead of after damage calculation? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Why wouldn't you just make it consistent? But you know what? As long as this exception is consistent within cards that remove themselves from the field, then I guess it's just a matter of knowing it, right? We have that same specification on the last step about problem-solving card text, then you can use fast effects that modify stats, blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool. So other than that weird continuous effect ruling and 3 cards that we have to remember that work differently, there doesn't seem to be anything too hard. I'm feeling pretty confident so far. You know, I could just imagine how annoyed my opponent would be if like every single attack I made was just like damage calculation, substep 1, substep 2, substep 3. And speaking of substep 3, it's time to compare our meatballs. Welcome to damage calculation. This is the substep where the game mechanically actually calculates the battle damage and inflicts the battle damage and determines what monsters will be destroyed or if any get destroyed. Now, while your monster isn't actually destroyed until the end of the damage step, if you have a replacement effect like Ryzeal Detonator, you have to decide if you want to use it right here within this step. And this is also the first step where cards and effects that modify attack and defense can't actually be used in this part of the damage step and within the damage step moving forward. What's funny is their wording is, in general, cards and effects that modify attack and defense cannot be activated at this point or for the rest of the damage step, and it has 3 footnotes. And that's such a vague language to use. That's like asking someone if they did anything fucked up and they're just like, generally, no. Alright, let's see those footnotes. So this first footnote just leads to a link to Blackwing Jin the Rain Shadow with no further explanation. Why is this footnote in damage calculation? I thought we resolved this already. You can't just be like, generally you can't use cards that modify attack and defense, but sometimes a card is a Jin the Rain Shadow. Okay, so the second and third footnote actually leads to a card called Attack of the Cornered Rat. Apparently this trap card is an exception because at some point, Konami said you can use continuous-like effect of trap cards in the damage step at any point in the damage step, with the exception of Attack of the Cornered Rat. This card specifically cannot be used in the damage step. Everything else that's continuous-like is fair game, but if you try to use this one, then we're not beating the reading allegations. Also, can we get some clarity on what the difference between a continuous-like and a continuous effect actually is? No? Alright, thanks Konami. Now hold on, don't put your monster in the graveyard quite yet. It might be destroyed, but it's not actually sent to the graveyard yet in this substep. We need to perform after damage calculation. And the very first thing that happened within after damage calculation is this Gozen Match confliction will finally resolve. Why does it happen here? Who knows? Konami just said so. And in general, cards and effects that activate when battle damage is inflicted, like the one and only Danzalug, will activate within this substep as well. And finally, you sweet Enneacraft player, you can use that flip effect. Go ahead. But before you go ahead and resolve that flip effect, there's some weirdness that I want to go over about a monster that's being destroyed but not sent to the graveyard yet. For example, the card is considered destroyed, so if it has a continuous effect like Jinzo, that continuous effect no longer applies. And these monsters can't use or be used as cost for optional fast effects. And I say optional because mandatory effects work completely different. Take Doomcaliber Knight for example. If he's in a state of being destroyed by battle but not sent to the graveyard yet, and then a monster effect activates, like something that would activate when battle damage is inflicted, Doomcaliber Knight will still tribute himself off to negate and destroy the effect, despite being in this state between life and death, destroyed but not sent to the graveyard. And while they're in this state as well, they can't be targeted by card effects, they can't change their battle position, and their stats can't be changed at all. But their effects can be negated still. You can't return them to the hand unless of course you use last minute cancel, because that card lets you return it to the hand even though you can't otherwise mechanically do it. So I mean, we'll just throw that one onto the list of exceptions here. But despite not being able to be bounced, it can still be destroyed, sent to the graveyard, or banished before it's sent to the graveyard as a result of battle. Oh god, we're almost done, said the Enneacraft player if I asked if he would like to proceed with Substep 5. Welcome to the end of the damage step, where you finally send that monster to the graveyard or do whatever other appropriate effect, like removing a material from Detonator. And it lists some obvious things here, like cards and effects at the end of the damage step can also be activated. No way. Most effects that activate when a monster is destroyed by battle will activate at this time. Using that vague language again, and another 2 footnotes I see. Hey man, are you a good person? Mostly. But once there's nothing left to activate, the damage step ends and you return back to the battle step. And this is also when any continuous effects that apply during the damage step will expire. And that is one whole attack. And genuinely, I do think understanding this will help your gameplay a little bit. Like just understanding and knowing what you can and cannot use within the damage step, I think is actually a big benefit instead of just relying on, does my card light up in the damage step? And to have full clarity, let's cover all of the kind of cards that can actually be activated in the damage step that wasn't just mentioned in this breakdown. Surely this will be a comprehensive list with no exceptions at all, because this is where the 2 footnotes brought me. So I guess first they list mandatory effects, if it wasn't obvious from the Doomcaliber Knight example from before. Yeah, mandatory effects are mandatory. They just need to be used whenever they're going to go. So next is counter traps. All of them, which I honestly think is appropriate. They're supposed to be the fastest spell speed in the game, so I would hope that they can be used in the damage step. Monster and trap effects that specifically negates the activation of a card effect. But why though? It doesn't really meet any of your other criteria. It's just making Omni Negates better to make them better. But it is cards that specifically negate the activation, which explains why cards like Baron will work in the damage step, but Ash Blossom doesn't. Fast effects that change the monster's attack and defense, except for cards like Swift Samurai Sword that modifies the stats outside of the trap's resolution. I didn't know that was a thing. In the TCG, Evil Blast, Scrap Sheen, Zero Force, and Rocket Hand can't be used in the damage step because
fuck it, they decided it cool if it couldn't be used.
Trigger and trigger-like effects can also still activate. What's the difference between a trigger and a trigger-like effect? I don't know, ask your head judge, because Konami didn't clarify either. Oh, and if you play OCG, then Shark Stickers, Statue of Anguish Pattern, Super Heavy Samurai Kabuto, UA Blockbacker, Vampire Grace, and Wind Up Shark can't use their effects in the damage step even though you can use them in the TCG. Why, you may ask? Just because Konami said so. Speaking of Konami said so, there's also a list of cards that have been ruled to be able to be used in the damage step, despite nothing on the card saying that you can use it in the damage step. For both OCG and TCG, it's Desrook Archfiend. It can just be used in the damage step, even though nothing says it can. And if you play TCG, then Muko, Skullmeister, Spell Reactor RE, Tethys Goddess of Light, Trap Reactor YFI, and TG Blade Blaster can all be used in the damage step. Why the exceptions on these cards? Because everything we just learned doesn't matter. It doesn't make sense, and even after all of this research, sometimes it just comes down to Konami said so, and we just have to accept that. If you guys liked or enjoyed this video, why not consider liking and subscribing? It actually goes a long way to help small creators like me, and I couldn't thank you guys enough for watching. As always, shout out to my channel supporters. These guys fucking rock, and I hope you guys have a beautiful and a wonderful day. Love you guys. Bye. By the way, just to give you some context on the origin of the joke for why the chicken crossed the road, is that the answer to it is meant to be a double meaning. The response, get to the other side, is meant to be in reference to getting to the other side of the road and crossing onto the other side because they died. It's a roadkill joke. Yum yum.